Here we go.
First, let me say immodestly that my research on the Gathas has revealed their nature eh, as something different than scholars uh, have assumed. Um, there are different approaches to the Gathas. Some are ritualists, some, I don't know, just see them as a kind of preaching. Um, but what they really are, what their essence is, I think becomes clear only with the methodology and the mindset that I've brought to them. Uh, so, as far as my methodology goes, you'll see what it is as we proceed. Um, but these poems are uh, particularly interesting for their.
Oh, now Louis dropped off.
No, no,
Uh,
I'm here. I'm
are
here.
you are you here? Okay, okay.
Okay,
I'm
Mm.
just giving you. I wanted to see Marty and the whole screen. That's all.
Oh,
okay, good.
okay.
Okay, so the what we can call the poetic technique of narration, as opposed to uh, the basic structural compositional elements of the poem. I mean, the narration has certain unique poetic characteristics, and I see them as a multi-layered operation of a genre in a genre uh, whose heart is enigma. So, at the heart of this genre, we have intentional enigma, sort of riddles which can be solved. Uh, and I think it was quite a big deal for the audience who wanted something interesting intellectually, something that had the feel of revelation to them, to begin to understand what was going on in the poems. And they may well have contemplated them uh, upon hearing them a number of times. We don't know, the uh, specifics of the relationship between the poet priest, Zarathustra, and the audience, but uh, he posed problems for them to figure out. And he wouldn't have been known, he wouldn't have become famous uh, if these enigmas were not soluble. People had to at least understand some of what he was up to. Um, and after all, he spoke to uh, his patrons. He may have given them hints as to what was up to when he wasn't reciting. Now, um, so the style of narration with all these cryptic elements in them, and there's a whole menu of cryptic techniques he used, many different techniques. Uh, they constitute really something that, with regard to some of these techniques, push the edges of what is cognitively possible. So I think one of the important things about these poems is how they give us a window into the possibilities of the human mind with regard to perceiving things. with regard to, what I once in the 80s called the outer reaches of orality. Orality, because after all, these poems were not written, they were recited to an audience. There was no writing in this culture. So we get a special window into the possibilities of oral composition, but into the workings of the human mind. I think these are mind-stretching poems. Now, apart from that, of course, we have the foundation document of an innovative religion. So that is really something that is unique. I mean, we don't know how much of the Buddhist canon, for example, really represents what Buddha said. As for the Quran, now there are disputes as to how much of it was composed by Muhammad, upon whom, etc. So we can't be sure that we have the words of Muhammad in all cases in the Quran. Similarly, with Jesus and the New Testament, well, some seem to be the logia of Jesus, but through what kind of filters and what kind of conditioning, what kind of selection, we don't know. Moses, well, forget Moses as far as knowing what Moses really said. It's largely mythological. But here we have the ipsissima verba of Zarathustra, his own words. Yeah, there are some scholars like Jean Kellens and Protoctor Scherve who have at various times denied that there was a Zarathustra or that it matters that there was a singular poet. Maybe they think there were committees, at least that's what Kellens once thought. But I think, the poetry itself, and I'm not going to now go into why these poems do represent a real historical personage and his words. It's not for now, it's another discussion, but let us say we do have his words. So let's now look at our text. Olga, shall I give you, you don't have a text. Do you want me to give you the text of
I think I have it in my memory. I looked at those texts before.
Okay, Yasna 32.
I can even bring your translation of.
You have
it's
what?
I don't have 32. What do you have?
I can give you Insler. I can give you the latest of Humbach.
Latest of Humbach. Okay, give me latest of Humbach. I'll come to you just in a second.
Okay, please.
Let me stop the video here. Okay.
Now, pedagogically, it's a bit of a crazy idea to start with Yasna 32, but I love it. I love Yasna 32. And it really shows the depth of Zarathustra's work. So
wait a second here, please. I want to show the text that we are reading from to the camera, so that
You don't have to show it on screen. You don't have to
well,
show it on screen.
I have to show it to the audience that this is what I will be reading from. And what will you be reading from?
Well, as a text, I'm using Humbach 1991. That's just for the text, not for the translation.
Okay.
And one can also use the more recent, quite recent text of Uesugi and Kat, which is based on Uesugi's collaboration with Humbach in Humbach's last years.
So you will be
so-
reading from the original, from Old Western, right?
Yeah. I'm just talking
Okay,
about
okay.
which text I'm using. So
I got it.
yeah,
Okay.
I mean the text is essentially the same.
Okay.
If you want Insler, I can give you Insler. He's sitting right here.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, I have a Western here.
Now, this first stanza is like a minefield, a lexical minefield. It's full of little problems, and I just want to take you through it. I won't focus on what these linguistic problems are, but you could ask me. So you have here, firstly, a canon of a social canon. Huaytu, nominative Huaytush, family, Wurzena, community in Aryaman tribe, probably, maybe clan. And let me read it to you the way I think it sounded when Zarathustra recited. This is an agreement with the reconstruction of Bacchus, and this difference between the text we see, it's not really a big deal. I mean, we know that the text at hand is, for one thing, it's in the matrix of a somewhat later and dialectally slightly different language, which is called Younger Vest. In short,
Okay, David just
hi, David.
came.
Okay.
I somehow didn't get the link before. I'm sorry. I didn't know what was happening.
Oh, okay. Well, as long as you're here.
Okay, I'm here.
So, Marty, do you want to tell David about the novelty of your approach or interpretation that
But
what
you don't repeat anything for my sake. It's all my fault. I'm late.
well,
David, we'll have a video of it for you. Yeah. So I'm just beginning to read the text. And the main idea is his way of narrating.
Okay, excuse me. Which text?
It has many layers.
Which text are you reading?
Of what?
Which text?
That's not 32.
Okay, just a second. I'm going to get it.
So yeah, I don't know what I sent you the Uesugi cat. I sent you. You probably have the Humbach. I sent you my old transcription of it. Who is
I'm
that,
gonna read-
West?
Yes. And he
Does
goes,
he have the Avestan text?
he has the Avestan text in this, and I'll get that.
Okay. Okay. West's translation will be different. They're all different. I don't think West had a clue, really.
You don't think? Okay.
I mean, he used everyone else's translations and picked and chose what he thought would be sensible to him. And remember, as we said, David, West had the idea that the phrases, sentences mean one thing and one thing only. The idea that there was any intentional ambiguity was very much not what West believed.
Well, that's simply exactly what he did with Greek poetry. He didn't
So
believe
you told me.
he didn't believe in ambiguity in poetry.
I, however, believe that complex, different, word plays, ambiguity, intentional ambiguity, which one has to make one's way through, I think is very much at the heart, certainly, of this poem.
Yeah,
And
but
we'll see that. Okay.
I'm sure none of the Germans believed in ambiguity either. So if you're going to have a translation, it can only be on one level.
Jacques Hellens did not. The Germans maybe a little now and then. But that's the water in which this poetry swims, really. If I may mix metaphors. So now let's look at this. You have, let me just translate it. First word, ahia. It's written ahia, ahiacha. That C is a cha. And that cha, that's the enclitic, which corresponds to Latin que and archaic Greek te, meaning and, que. So ahia cha, and of him. Because of the additional cha, there's a shift in stress, so you get ahia. Same word ahia that you see several times elsewhere in the stanza. So you could say ahia and of him. What of him? We have to wait. Of him, entreated, there did entreat family. Of him, you have to repeat it, entreated community with tribe or clan. Of him, and now you begin to have a little syntactic problematics. Daiwa, let's skip the Daiwa for a minute, and the Mahmi Mnai for a minute, and get to this Urwazma Mazda. That tells you what they entreated for. It tells you what they asked for. Community, family, community with clan, etc. Asked for the Urwazma. It's a very important word. It has to be reconstructed because of meter and other considerations as two syllables, vraz, ma, vrazma. That schwa is a recitational feature, and r becoming urv is a somewhat later feature of the language which is preserved here, but it can be shown that this word was really originally for Zarathustra, Vrasma. That's a W-R, long A, Z, M, short A, really, Vrasma, meaning bliss. They all entreated, they all asked for the bliss of, is a genitive, ahurahya, looks like a good Homeric genitive in Oyo, yeah, of Mazda, of Ahura Mazda. The order usually is Mazda Ahura, but in this case it's Ahura Mazda because of the insertion of the word for bliss. So of him, namely, of Ahura Mazda, did they ask? So of him, leads to this climax of the object that they wanted, they entreated for. And now you have a word, daiwa. Daiwa can mean either, oh, you demons, or demons as subject of the sentence. Now, most people think that he's saying, oh, you demons. Why the demons are addressed here is not clear, but in the third stanza, there is indeed an address to the demons. But all you demons, at yush daiwa wiswangho, all of you. So there he does address demons. So there's already a problem that in theory, daiwa can be a nominative plural or it can be a vocative plural. Now, if you look at the way Zarathustra is sort of guiding you with the position of the word ahya, you have ahya plus a subject. Ahya chwaitush, ahya rizanam. So why not ahya daiwa? The demons of him did entreat. That would tell you that not only family, community, clan, whatever, or tribe, whatever, whoever they are, entreated, but even the demons. And they wanted the bliss of Ahura Mazda. Well, demons, they like bliss the way good people do too. I mean, demons here could be human beings. They could be demonic persons. I think it's ambiguous in the sense of, whether you have a supernatural category called demons, or when he says demons, he includes human beings. But let's get to the construction of the sentence. And the next, everyone agrees, is a quotation. I think it means as follows. On the one hand, let us be, anhama, from the root to be, yeah, equals Sanskrit us, Greek s, and so forth, st, whatnot. Let us be dutango, plural of the word duta. Very common word in Vedic, duta. It means a messenger. Let us be thy, tvoi is thy, messengers, tang darayo, to hold those who are inimical to you. Tang darya yoi wa dvishanti is, I think, or dvishanti is the way it was originally, dvishanti. Now, what do I mean by hold those?
Wait, go back over the quotation, and translate it without jumping back and forth between English and Avestan. Just translate the sentence.
Yes. Translation 1. We will be, or let us be, your messengers to hold back those. Let us be thy messengers to hold back those who are your, plural, enemies. Okay? Translation 2, which is simultaneously valid. Let us be smokes to you, to thee, supporting, holding up those who are inimical to you. So you have really two different sentences. Because the word dute,
but they're opposite each other. So
what?
well, why would, I mean, I'm, as you know, a big fan of ambiguity, but why would there be ambiguity here?
Okay, listen and I'll explain
Why do you
it. Okay,
say
that's what I'm going to explain.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to explain. Yeah.
Okay. One more thing, though, before you explain the overall thing, this doesn't seem to be the role of messengers to do something. Messengers announce things.
Call it missionaries.
Okay.
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 He really means missionaries, and the context shows that. I mean, a missionary is a messenger. The context shows it. In the end of the poem, he speaks of those who have been sent, and also the parallel passage, which contains much of the same vocabulary in Shasta 49, has let us be your freistas, which is another word for messenger or legate. So the word should mean messenger, but there's a homophone, duta, which means smoke. In Persian, dud means smoke. In Pashto, which is a gendered language, the masculine noun lu, which comes from masculine form, duta, means smoke. And if you look at what in the ring composition of the poem is, and I sent you diagrams for this, in stanza in stanza 13, you have the word dutem, which is accusative of the word duta, and there again it means messenger, but the next stanza talks about burning a certain substance, making smoke, in short. Now, we are now going to see dualism in action, as it were, in the poetry itself. There is a dualism that is meant here. And I will explain what I mean by that.
Can I ask you what is homophone, just technically and quickly?
What, Olga?
Homophone means what?
Two words that sound alike.
Two words that have the same meaning.
Like right and right, and one is I-T-E and one is I-G-H-T. They're homophones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's using a word with two meanings, same sound, two meanings. And the word Daraya, it's written here, but it's originally Daraya. It's clear that it's, from the verb, the present stem, Daraya, which means to hold. It's a very common word. The Achaemenid king Darius, he was Dariat Wahu, he who holds that which is good. However, if you look at Bartholomew's dictionary, he gives a couple of meanings, few meanings for this word. He says halten, to hold. He says festhalten, to hold firmly. Und zurückhalten, to hold back. And indeed, Yasna 46, which I can show, was composed before Yasna 32 and is really, in some ways, the point of procedure from Yasna 32, uses the word, the root dar, to hold, in several meanings, contradictory meanings. In some passages, it means to hold back. In other passages, it means to maintain, to hold up. Can also mean to hold on to, both positively and negatively. You hold on to someone, don't let them go, or you cling to someone as a friend. The same variety of meanings is seen in another poem, which compositionally is very close to Yasna 32. So there is an ambiguity built into the word Daria. Now, if you explore that ambiguity and at the same time explore the ambiguity of the word duta, meaning both messenger and smoke, then you can see that there are two statements here which have the same sound. And if the demons are really demonic, and if I think what is said about them is that they are duplicitous. They have, yes, in 32:3, the demons are said to be dvitana. I think that is from the word dvita, Sanskrit dvita, which means having doubleness. In short, duplicitous. In the duplicity of the demons seem to be saying something good. Let us be your messengers, let us be thy messengers. Thy is Ahura Mazda. To hold back yours a plurality, and I'll tell you why it's a plurality in a minute, to hold back those who are your enemies. That's what the demons seem to be saying. But what they really mean is we're going to be smoke to you, we're going to be obscuration to you, and we're going to hold up your enemies. Those are what the demons really mean. So you have two sets of meanings, and I think really two sets of groups here, two sets of family, community, and tribe here.
So you're saying that the person they're praying to, the divinity they're praying
I'm
to.
sorry, could you speak louder?
You're saying that who were they praying to? Who's the hymn again? Ahura Mazda?
They're all addressing Ahura Mazda, yeah.
Okay, so you're saying Ahura Mazda is blind to the ambiguity.
No,
Because in passage 2, he's saying it's good.
let's, yeah. However, in the third stanza, he says, but you demons are, you come out of bad mind, and all of you are duplicitous.
Okay.
So there's a double address, and there's not only a double address, namely to the righteous people and to the wrongful ones represented by the demons, but within the ring composition of the poem, there's a second statement. Let me see.
I got you. That's good.
Let me put this light on for a minute. Is that okay for you all, that light?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
Do you want me to bring the
No,
standing
no, I'm
lamp?
all right.
Okay.
Let me just find where that is. Yeah. It's in 32:12, actually. Let me see, 32:13. Yeah. You have 32:13. Ibio Mazda Aka Mraut. To those, meaning the bad guys, Mazda Ahura speaks bad things. And says, because of the bliss oath, the promise of bliss. Uchti is oath or asseverations of a strong statement. And urwash, it really should be urwash. There is an alternation in manuscripts between sh and sh in this word. If it's urwash uchti, it's the utterance concerning bliss. Namely the rasma, raz, same word, at the beginning. So Mazda has a double statement within the first immediately. He has statement for good and then statement for the bad ones. And then within the ring composition comes back to the rebuke of the daimon, of the daiwas. If you'll notice 32:2, Ibio Mazda Ahura Patim Raut. Okay, he responds. He says back, Patim Raut. In 32:13, I don't want to, sorry, 32:12, again you have Ibio to them, Mazda Raut. So the same, in effect, phrase, which indicates that he is now speaking to the demons. And that is in ring composition, 32:2 vis-a-vis 32:13. Ibia to those, Mazda Raut or Patim Raut. So there you have Mazda's not being deceived. Mazda, whose essence is comprehension. The word Mazda means comprehension. And the name of the game is understanding.
Right.
Having the mind aligned with the divine wisdom, that is kind of the goal. We are ourselves to be Mazda, comprehending. You can say wise, but it's really comprehending. He is the Lord who comprehends. So comprehension, understanding, is the key word to the whole poetry. Figuring it out, understanding what is right, what is wrong, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, what this line means, and what else this line means. It's all a matter of comprehension. So there's no question that Mazda is not deceived. Who may be deceived are human beings by the duplicity of the demonic forces, of demonic people. Okay? So let me see that I didn't drop anything. I did, and I'm going to let it hang there for a while, come back to it, namely the words Mahmim Noi in the second line of the first stanza. I'll come back to that, but okay. I have this, one of my two compositional aces in the hole, as it were. Basic compositional, structural facts that I discovered was the symmetrical composition, the absolutely strict symmetrical composition of every poem, which I refer to as ring composition. That's not new in the study of literature, of ancient literature particularly, but that it applies systematically to the Gathas and the extent to which it applies to the Gathas, that is my discovery.
Where is the ring composition? Each Gatha is arranged like that?
Remember, I emailed you something and I said, look at this diagram. So words in the first stanza will correspond to words in the last stanza. Words in the second stanza will correspond to words in the next to last stanza, to the third from last, until you get to the middle, and the middle corresponds in some way to the beginning and in some way to the end. That's the basic scheme. The longer poems have two such schemes. What I call the proto-poem, in this case, of Shasta 32 stanzas 1 to 13. That shows a perfectly fine ring composition. However, Zarathustra expanded some of those poems. So to this poem, he added a coda, so that you now have not 13, but 16 stanzas. The coda itself is a little ring composition. And then the overall poem is again a ring composition, but a different ring composition from the first one. It's pretty complicated, but I can prove it for poem after poem. And I have charts.
You just discovered this recently? You haven't published this?
I've given you a lot of references. I said,
I don't
look
have time
up
to
this.
track them down. I'm
No.
writing my own stuff.
Sorry, but I've tried to tell you to read, as a matter of fact, how Zarathustra generated a Gothic corpus. I sent that to you a couple of times. Okay,
I'll go back.
so now you get the idea. So that is one tool I have, and I've been using it a couple of times already. The other tool is I've discovered, and this is unprecedented as far as I know in the history of literature, including ancient literature. The principle which I now call scrim, I like that word for a few reasons, but it's an acronym for serial, I forget what it is, serial, I don't know, correlative, response. I don't know. It's in one of my papers, but in effect, it tells you how these poems were composed. Every poem has a skeletal key, actually has a skeleton, a word skeleton, a kind of scaffolding, if you want. Within each stanza, there are certain words or word forms. And you can go in two directions from beginning to end and from the end to the beginning, which gives you two scaffoldings or two skeletons. The next poem that was produced keeps stanza by stanza, repeats those same basic forms. Sometimes they're the same roots, sometimes they're the same stems, stanza by stanza, then the third poem, and so forth and so on. So that you can confront a series of poems and say they're closely related because they have these words and phrases in the same order, stanza by stanza, but in completely different contexts, so that you don't get a repetition of the poem, you get something completely different. And if you look up the references I gave you, you'll see I provided scores of charts. I don't know, I think I've produced a dozen articles by now, maybe more, with these charts in them. So that is my second tool. Now, I can tell you on the basis of my chart of Yasna 46 vis-a-vis Yasna 32 that Yasna 46 also has this canon, family, community, and clan. But in that instance, Zarathustra was reporting how when he was still looking for patronage, his family, his community, and his clan or tribe, whatever the Aryaman is, rejected him. And putting the two poems side by side, I've come up with the analysis that by this time, as indeed by the time he finished composing Yasna 46, which was first a report of when he was still looking for patrons, and then a report, so to speak, of when he had his basic patrons in place. Between that time, his preaching was so successful, his religious ideas, as expressed in his poems, had become so successful that every Tom, Dick, and Harry now wanted to pretend they were worshippers of Mazda Ahura, and were some of them trying to get into Zoroaster's glory, Zoroaster's kleos, his shrawa, kleos, so to speak. And that's reported in this poem. He uses the word shrawa, which is the cognative Greek, kleos, meaning abiding, well, fame, that which is heard about, from the root to hear.
I know what Kleos is.
David. So this now is a situation in which there were imitators, there were co-opters who were represented as demonic, duplicitous characters, devilish, duplicitous people. And I think that's what one of the things this poem is about. And indeed, the idea of speech is one of the keys to this poem, true speech and false speech. We'll see that as we go through the poem. There's also the idea of ties, T-I-E-S, and I'm going to mention that soon and show you the relevance of that. But what I want to say now is that through my technique of scrim, I have found in Yasna 33, which aligns. I'm getting an echo, by the way. I don't know what to do about the echo. Okay, I don't see now the echo now.
Okay.
It aligns in the way that I told you, according to this word skeleton poem, stanza by stanza. And Yasna 33 has the same canon, Huaytu family, Wurzana community, Aryaman, let's call it tribe. However, in two different orders. So 32.3 is about good family, community, clan. 32.3, that's 32.3. 32.4 uses those same words about bad community clan, bad community, bad tribe, bad family community, and tribe. So you have there that same canon, which is used, let's say, as a kind of poetical card that you play in different ways, or better, a jazz melody, of which you have variations, but you have the basics that constitute the similarity. Not only the words Huaytu, Hurzana, Ayaman, family, community, and tribe, but also what else is there here? You have at the end of Yasna 32.3 a phrase which says, those who are, in effect, it stands as those who combat evil and support the guest, hospitality rules. Such people will be in the they will achieve the will of Master Ahura and be in his inclination, his favor, in his what he likes. And if you take that line and read its initials in a certain way, what you get is Warazama. You get the word for bliss as an oral acrostic. I can recite it.
Where are you? No,
I'm at the end of 32.2. You don't have to have that text. What I am saying here is that the same three social entities, family, community, clan, occur in opposition. Good family, community, clan, bad family, community, so, all three of them, dualized, as it were, in the derivative poem, the poem which derives from Yasna 32, on top of which you have that keyword bliss, rasma, as an oral acrostic. So you have the basic elements of Yasna 32, but with an illustration of the dualism of the family, community, and tribe, which you now have to assume that when he says in Yasna 32, family, community, tribe, he means, and also the demonic family, community, and tribe. So he then breaks up, shows you that there are two groups, family, community, tribe, one good, one bad, in the next poem. So he opens that up. If you understand that he's opening that up, and the correlation between the two poems is, I can demonstrate that the two poems have this stanza by stanza correlation, which shows that they are closely connected. So what remains to be explained are these words in the second line, Mahmi Manai. I take the word which is written Manoi and has to be one syllable, as standing for Manai, in the same way that we have a word poi, pilong I, meaning in protecting, from the word pa. So pa gives you poi in the same way that mna gives you mnoi. Mna in Vedic means to call to someone's memory, to put into their mind, to stress mentally, to make someone recall the root mana, as in Greek, mnema, which is mna, ma, from the root mna, to remember and stuff like that. So what he is saying here is that family, community, tribe, mahmi mnai, in my urging or my calling to mind, or my stressing for people to keep in mind that this happened, which is to say that through my reciting my Gathas, the influence of my reciting the Gathas is that family, community, and clan, good and bad, now seek to have Ahura Mazda's bliss, either legitimately by being righteous and Ahura Mazda, or rather Mazda Ahura gives them his bliss, or they somehow steal it. They somehow co-opt it. But it is because Zarathustra says of my urging, my poetic calling to mind, that this has happened. In short, if I'm right, and I think the rest of the poem bears me up, he says, well, this is the result now of, this is the effect of my Gothic activity, that people are now, rightly and wrongly, wishing to get this bliss. So that is one aspect of this stanza. I can, if anyone has any questions on what I've said so far, please ask. Olga.
I'm just letting you know that I have 12 questions already written down.
Give me three concise, important questions.
Okay. Would it be correct to say that the principle of understanding is the main philosophical principle of the Gathas?
It certainly is one of the main important aspects of the Gathas. Apart from what he's saying, what he is recommending, apart from what he is telling you should do. Yeah, he says you should understand. And if you don't understand the Gathas, then you don't know what he's about.
Okay, well, this is to be developed. I think we'll talk about it more.
What's your next?
Do you see that this dual meaning in different forms, it's like a principle which is pervasive to the whole of the Gathas?
Which is what to the whole Gathas?
Divisive.
Not divisive, but the opposition. The opposition.
Okay, I can answer that simply.
Yeah.
one of the things that Zarathustra inherited from earlier culture of Iran was dualism.
The what, Marty?
Dualism. Yeah, dualism, not yet a developed cosmogonic dualism, but just the idea of dualism.
That's pretty basic.
I can show you.
Dualism is very basic. People see things in terms of night and day and left and right.
Right and wrong in this case.
Yeah. But
okay. I mean, there are a lot of dualisms. Okay. Manichaeism has spirit and matter. But you can name all kinds of dualisms. I mean, we can't think without some kind of dualism or duality, light versus darkness, hot versus cold, fat versus skinny. Yeah, I mean, such distinction is basic to the human mind. A distinction between right and wrong is also basic. But when you put that in the center of your thought, you have an ism, you have a dualism, and in early Avestan, and I can prove this was already present before Zarathustra, you have words, let's say, for to see of good creatures and of bad creatures, eyes of good creatures, and a different word for eyes of bad creatures, movement of good beings and bad movement. So the Iranians, quite unlike, say, the Vedic culture, which is in general quite similar, really took the idea of a good versus a bad to a foregrounded extent in their thought and in their language. So that is the kind of dualism I'm talking about. Okay? Zarathustra took it further. And I can tell you later on how further he took it, what he did with this dualism. So since he now has righteous beings versus wrongsome beings, and since he is contrasting himself to the poet priests that he opposes, to what he regards as the obfuscation and oppression of the other bunch of poet priests with their traditional pantheon and so forth. He is illustrating the two camps in the very stanza that we're looking at. So to that extent, his phraseology here, the whole idea of this stanza, and for that matter, running through the whole poem, is this contrast of a right bunch and a wrong bunch. So does that answer your question, Olga?
Let me give you the comment instead of the question in number 3, and then you'll see
your third question or comment. Go ahead.
My third question or comment. So I think that if we look at the Gathas as just a metaphysical expression of dualism between right and wrong, then Gathas becomes the example of primitive metaphysical dualism, which gives us right and wrong, but doesn't give us principles of definition of what is right and what is wrong.
Okay, but he does give you.
However, let me just finish. What you said today is that there is a principle of comprehension, which is like a main philosophical principle of the Gathas, and main, if I'm understanding correctly, and main will be, like, for example, as opposing to the principle of ontological hierarchy or the ground or the causality. It's comprehension which is taking place, not unfolding of some kind of a scheme of the universe, but the comprehension. Let me finish. So comprehension and dualism are existing together, are given together as a certain style of thinking, as a certain philosophical style, which would be specifically Gothic. Is it plausible? Is it correct? Is it not?
Well, Olga, you said a mouthful.
Well, I
I
can
mean, look,
back.
We haven't considered the corpus and how he's developing it and how he's using, how he's taking the idea of dualism as a component in a cosmogonic explanation of what's going on in the universe. So from this one stanza, it's not the whole poem. It's not the whole system of thought.
But when he
Yeah,
says,
comprehension is important. Louis, you want to say something?
okay,
So
Lou.
I'd like to ask a question in a different direction. Given the ring composition and given your analysis that shows a recursive composition that is
Oh,
very
yes, recursive.
complex.
That's the second word in Scrim.
Yes,
I forgot that.
recursive,
Yeah, it's the third letter. Yeah.
uh, uh, which I think is quite important. And in your papers, I think you make a very good case for that. But given that, the message of a ring composition or recursivity would find in the center the key,
Yes, I
one
say
would
that.
think. So I would think that the very important passage to think about would be the central verse of 32.
Well,
And
let's
I'm
look at that. Let's try.
and so I'm wondering if you could look at that and see if that fits with your understanding of the message.
Okay,
Uh,
so
well,
there are two centers.
I have a corollary question about which gets to the use of homophones. Presumably, this very complex composition might be seen, solved, noticed only by an elite of people who perhaps not only had a good mind, but were specialists, perhaps
And
specialists in memorizing the poems or what, in some way.
yeah, and perhaps close personally, since there was an oral audience and
Okay,
there was a
so
circle of
my
patrons,
question, my
close
question,
personally to Zarathustra.
right, my question would be that in those instances where there is a homophone that that gives one a very stark contrast in meaning, um, is that homophone composed of one more specialized word, elite word, versus a common one?
That question I can answer easily. If we look at this example, and there are others, the idea that the word dar, stem daria, commonly means both to hold onto something, to hold fast, and commonly also means to hold back, to restrain. Those are common meanings. So that homonymy, or the two meanings, in this case, it's two different ideas of holding, that's common enough. That's very basic. And that there's something going on with that particular word is already keyed by the different usages in the earlier poem, Yasna 46, and also the poems that, Yasna 49, that proceed from 32. So people can get some idea that, oh, there's a whole lot of darring going on. Which does he mean? Does he mean both? And similarly, the word duta, for legate, for messenger. Well, it's very common in Vedic, in Sanskrit. I think people knew what a duta is in the sense of a missionary or a messenger. So they're both, I think, common. But the idea that he's using something in two meanings, that takes a little doing. As to who gets what, I don't know how many people got all of the intricacies of what Zarathustra meant. And as a matter of fact, I think once the audience of those who were close to him and could have some idea of what Zarathustra was about, and those who knew those who were close to him, once there were fewer and fewer of those people, I really think fairly early on, people no longer got what he was doing, that he was a little too complicated, or maybe much too complicated, to be understood by the average person. And I think maybe that was a fault of the poetry.
No, that's
Maybe a
almost,
fault
it's the
in my
essence of
scholarship
poetry. It's the
to
essence of poetry to push
go into all
language.
this complexity, and people just don't want to go there, maybe. So maybe I suffer from the same larger problem as Zarathustra. But yeah, it was an elite. It was definitely an elite, to answer your question.
Aeschylus also and Pindar wrote very difficult poetry. There's all kinds of verbal tricks and things like that. And they wrote for a sizable audience. Aeschylus wrote for thousands of people. So that's always a side question when people analyze ambiguity is why would
Yeah,
he do it?
but note you're talking about writing. So yeah,
No, I'm not.
books were pricey. We know that. And it was not everybody could get the text of this or that poet or playwright.
No, these
But
were meant for oral presentation in the first
uh-huh,
place.
uh-huh,
They were not meant for reading at all.
uh-huh, uh-huh,
Nobody was expected to go out and buy the Agamemnon as soon as they heard it.
uh-huh.
They heard it
So you're
once.
still dealing effectively with an oral situation,
It's
even though it was written by the
entirely
poet.
oral.
Yeah, well, I would say that still the circles, well, for one thing, this is more complicated than Aeschylus or Pindar. You know, I have compared certain techniques of Pindar with stuff in the Gathas. I think, the most recent article, one of my most recent articles, I had a long quotation from Pindar's Second Olympian Ode, in which I showed that some of these intricacies of sound, of encryption, and so forth are present in the Second Olympian Ode. I've shown that for one of the Pythian odes, and I forget what, but a couple of the odes, that he has this very complex encrypted phonic play. So speak of Pindar, yeah, but Zarathustra is all the more complicated. So it's harder to understand. And what I'd like to do now, I hope there's time.
No, I have to go because it stopped snowing. It's getting dark, and I have to shovel before it freezes, and we're totally isolated in our house.
Okay, well, be careful.
I have to be careful.
with your bending and lifting, yeah, and with the snow and the ice.
Thank you. Anyway,
So, we got to be
okay.
careful these days with such things. So,
Send us some snow.
huh?
Send us some snow. We're getting snowless cold.
Olga likes snow. I don't.
It's
Okay, David.
okay. I'll see you.
Jake is into hate. Go in good health.
Thank
Louis?
So I think it's relevant to Olga's question to understand what's in the center. In other words, is that consistent with what you say is the fuel that drives this poem?
Could you say that a little more loudly,
In other
Louis?
words, it's my hypothesis that when you have a ring structure, when you
Hold
have
on. Maybe I can
it's in the
increase.
center that's key.
Okay, hold on. Let me go to my sound bar here and see if I can make things louder. Go ahead.
So what Olga was referring to or asking about was what in fact is the central message of the poem, and I believe that it makes most sense to look for that in the center, given
Okay,
that
let's do that.
structure.
Let's do that and see what we come up with, okay?
Yeah. Doesn't that sound like a reasonable hypothesis?
I think the center is important, but it varies from poem to poem. What we should do is look at those centers, yeah? See what we have. Let's make the experiment.
And then after we do that, can I have a minute or it's too much?
You can have 3 minutes. How's that? You can even have maybe almost 5 minutes. Okay, hold on. Okay, so if we have a 13 stanza composition, so what number stands as the center? Is it 7?
It would be 6 or 7. Yeah.
So 6 and 7 are the center of a 13 stanza composition, yeah?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Olga, can you do me a favor and bring me the Humbach that you have?
Yes. Humbach coming.
I have a reason.
Okay.
The reason is that within the history of transmission of this poem, a couple of phrases got mixed up, and they can be restored via ring composition. So I now have to look at 6 and 7. So let's say in stanza 6, he says, many are the violations or crimes, which are, and you can take the next word as numberless or not bringing peace. So you can say, let's say, the violences or the countless sins for which one would gain fame. But you, O Lord, with your best mind, are knowing in your accounting of merits, meaning of just deserts. So there he's saying people want to gain fame or glory. They'll do all kinds of stuff. But you, Mazdahura, know what is right and what is wrong. And in the next stanza, he says, with regard to those violations like that, he says, as far as I know, I declare myself innocent. But if I'm similarly at fault, in effect, what he says, that's in your judgment, O Mazdahura. So the idea of duplicity, of false representation, is repeated. I mean, that's what I said the poem is about, and that's what I find here in the center. Now, that's the 13th stanza center. Now, let me look. If it's a 16 stanza center, then it should be between 7 and 8, right?
Yeah.
Well, I've already given you 7 and 8 addresses Yima and his false speech in order to be regarded as a divinity, in my opinion. Which is to say, he wants to be like one of the false gods who are indeed the Daivas. The word Daiva originally, by the way, meant a god, but came to mean god of the other bunch and therefore demon. So there is a relationship, a thematic relationship of the middle, no matter what you regard the middle, at least to the beginning. I think there's a formal relationship, which we'll look at later, to the end also. But that I think we'll have to wait a little while until we make a further analysis of what is going on in the first two stanzas, which I haven't done yet. So now, yeah, the center is very important, but you have to understand how to see the importance of that center in terms of the whole understanding the poem as a whole. You can't just look at the center and expect, to be thoroughly enlightened. But the center is important. I wouldn't, how much of a criterion the center of the ring composition is, I don't know. So who wants to say something more? Louis.
Well,
Louis.
as I look at, one of the problems is that I've looked at several translations, and as you've said, they all are quite different. But it seems to me when you translate the center that it makes a lot of sense as being of fairly strong importance in terms of what you've discussed as the gist, the engine of what drives Zarathustra's thought.
Okay. Now, I think you'll also find that the other translations don't give you a picture of what do they amount to? Do they seem coherent to you?
No, no, they do not.
Yeah,
That's
well,
part of the problem.
yeah, people have told me I look at translations, but I don't get it. What, I don't see a picture of what he's saying.
Right.
What he's
That's what, yes, I agree.
of course,
But I think that's what Olga is trying to get at, to what really is the crucial message that's in there, the core.
okay, I'm going to give you two crucial messages, all right? One is false speech and true speech, and the assessment of the true statements and false statements. That's one thing. So you can say that's one aspect of dualism. The second is a much more subtly embedded message, really subtly embedded message of the first two stanzas, which has to be seen in contemplation of the entirety of the poem, including its end, and more importantly, its relationship to Yasna 49, stanzas which repeat pretty much the same lexical material as we see here, the same words, in short, as we see in our first two stanzas. And it goes like this. In Yasna 32, 1 and 2, what is said both overtly in stanza 2 and covertly, cryptically in stanza 1 is that the chief aspects of the Godhead, namely Mazda Ahura, the Lord Wisdom, Wahumana, good mind, and Arsha Wahishta, best rightness, are all interconnected, interrelated, one to the other, in a kind of unity. So they're all part of divinity. So Mazda Ahura is one and is a plurality of aspects. And that is why in this address that we see in the third line of the first stanza, there's an address to thee and to Yod, because Mazda Ahura as a singularity is addressed, and then as a plurality is addressed. That is the key to the Gothic theology, that it's not a matter of monotheism. The Godhead is singular and is plural. Hold on, Olga. Now, the more complicated idea which emerges, there are two ideas which emerge, and it has to do with ties, hold it, Olga, and binding. If we confront Yasna 32 with Yasna 49, we see that this idea of bliss consists of the righteous human being, ostensibly in the afterlife, or at least chiefly in the afterlife, will become part of the plurality, which is divinity, which is to say that the human being will be integrated together with Mazda Ahura, good mind, best rightness, in paradise, in a state of bliss. So the bonds, that the ties of all of the components of divinity will also apply to the human being who becomes part of the divine dominion or the divine household in paradise. Whereas, and here's our dualism, the evildoers will get tied up to hell. So we have positive ties and negative ties, and the ties are very much, the negative ties are very much stressed in the end of this poem. And I would even say that, in a way, the poem is a very, very complicated version of what in classical studies is called a defixio, which is a binding spell, usually a negative binding spell. So the essence of magic, among other things, can be shown to be binding, but there are also positive, in this case, bonds. So I'll have to show you the encryption of that, of the interrelationship of the three entities in the first stanza, alongside the overt statement of their interrelationship in the second stanza. Olga, what were you going to say?
Do we have time a little bit? Yeah, okay. So I'll go and then just stop me if needed.
You'll
You
go
can
on and I'll stop you, yeah?
Yeah,
You'll
yeah,
go means
okay.
you'll go on, yeah?
I'll go on, yeah. So the name of God is Lord Wisdom. The whole poem presents itself as a task of comprehension, as a task of differentiation, the kind of a moral differentiation.
Differentiation at a verbal level and at a moral level, whole
On
lot of
all,
differentiation going on, yeah?
on all levels, yeah. So the divinized faculty, or what is it, Amesha Spenta, I guess, Vohumana is
Don't
good
use the word
mind.
Amesha Spenta for the Gathas.
Okay, scratch Amesha Spenta.
Yeah, that's a wrong notion. It's
Okay,
not your
okay,
wrong notion, it's a scholarly wrong notion.
all right.
That there's a canon of certain 7 entities that are already in the Gathas. That's wrong. Yeah?
Okay, okay. So, Vohumana, good mind, is an aspect of Ahura Mazda, but at the same time, it's an aspect which manifests as a form of mind in a human being.
Correct.
Okay, so you have this whole battery of faculties which are theologically and cognitively directed at comprehension or understanding or faculty of discernment between good and bad. So it's
Yeah.
a
You
specific.
can also say that these entities, understanding, right, correct mind, rightness, are both transcendent as divine aspects and immanent as human aspects.
Yes, and so using then the language proposed by Lou,
Sorry, the
this
language
which Louis just proposed,
by
what's
Lewis.
at what is at the center, and what you said in the beginning also. So what we have at the center is this theologized, divinized understanding aspect of the mind. So the kind of the mind which is wisdom not because it knows a lot, but because it comprehends correctly.
Yeah, I wouldn't push center as far as Lewis would like me to push it. I wouldn't push
Okay,
the center
well,
that far. I
yeah,
wouldn't, I
okay,
don't, I would rather not foreground
all
the
right,
importance of the center. I
fine.
mean, it's important in the construction of the poem, but
Yeah, so let's put the structure aside. I cannot make a judgment on the structure.
okay,
It's up to
okay.
you
So what you're
completely.
saying is,
But what I'm saying is that philosophically, this is the treatise which values, prioritizes not judgment, but understanding, sort of. I don't want to bring in other systems, but it's probably the only theological system, well, at least that I'm familiar with, in which understanding is divinized. You know, I can keep going keep going on with it, but nowhere
I mean,
else
it depends.
yeah, you have
I
chitta
mean,
in here and
for
there, yeah.
example, in the Bible, wisdom is an important entity in some of the books.
Yeah, but that's a different wisdom.
And in Kabbalah, which, by the way, ultimately may not, which ultimately may have been influenced by certain tendencies,
Yeah,
very
but
complicated
it's a different.
in the Gathas, and
It's a
one has to wait till I make my point here. Uh, this abstractionism may have, and the idea, one must trace, the modes of transmission before one talks about such things. But happens that Kabbalistic abstractionism may be some kind of distant reflection of the abstractionism of the Gathas. But in Kabbalah, you have the upper Sephiroth, namely Chachma, Bina, and Da'ath, which is to say wisdom, Chachma, Bina, discernment, and Da'ath, understanding. Those are the 3 upper Sephiroth.
well,
And so,
yeah, yeah. That's we have to be careful though with juxtaposing different faculties of knowledge as abstractions and human cognitive faculties. So that can be done, that hasn't been done. But what's important that the emphasis on moral, on the mind which can see the truth of goodness, and I'm very careful with introducing the word truth. It's a special kind of understanding. It's an understanding of this essence of goodness, which is also, again, not a Gothic term. But I think that that's what at the center, so to say, of the content of the meaning of the Gathas.
Of the center of the meaning, but we don't necessarily mean at the center of the poem.
Right.
But what I want to say is this. Firstly, I really do strive when I look at the Gathas to see them in themselves, to see them for what they're saying, as it were, emically, and as it were, synchronically, and not diachronically, and not comparatively, and so forth and so on. I'll also say that with regard to discernment, to use of the mind, and to the stressing of that, there are some poems, Shasta 30 and Shasta 45, where that is stressed even more. Okay? Now,
And the term for
let me just
discernment,
finish,
the
and
word,
this is my main point. Hold on.
what's
My
the
main
Western,
point,
Western for discernment?
huh?
The word.
What is the Western for discernment? The basic idea is a verb with a preverb we and the root chi, which means to discern. We chi means to discern, to make a distinction.
Mm-hmm.
And that is stressed more in the other poems. What I want to say is that the message of Yasna 32, which is ultimately the message of the corpus, is that if you're on the right side and follows what Zarathustra regards as the dictates of rightness, you will be rewarded in the afterlife. If you don't, you'll also be rewarded, but negatively. You'll be requited negatively in the afterlife. So this idea of bliss is a very key idea here because it refers to that state of individual eschatology, of the soul participating in that blissful state of unity, which is that of the Godhead. So that's basically the message of the Gathas as a whole, was that existence, the world, is constituted such that at the beginning, basic principles were present, so that in the end, there will be just requitals of justice. And the poetry as exercises in discernment may be seen also as models of moral discernment. And you have to also realize that, there's a historical situation here, that there's a rivalry of priesthoods. And this is Zarathustra saying, hey, listen to me. Don't listen to those guys. just as I say, if you want to understand the Gathas, listen to me. Okay? But all right. Yeah.
Yeah, in looking at the various translations, it seems to underline what you just said. If you look at the center and the rest of it, the center is about right thinking, following what Zarathustra, and the stuff around it is worrying itself with people who don't know how to get to the truth or who are masking evil thoughts. Um, so I think the recursive ring structure helps one see that it's very important to have good thought, knowing what is the truth, and the way to do it is to follow what Zarathustra thinks is the logic of that approach.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not in disagreement with you, but as for the motivations, as for what, you know, both the ring compositional and the scrim principle, uh, what what the function of that stuff
So
is.
yeah, I think what you've made a very good case, obviously with the recursive nature, the ring composition. But the question, it's a side question. I mean, Olga's question, of course, is the most important. What is the core? What is the fuel that is that fuels the engine? Why? But the I would maintain, and I think it's the case that the ring structure is not simply a mnemonic or something harmonious, but adds some power to the force of what he's trying to achieve.
Uh, Probably, uh, there was a famous great scholar. I mean, I think we've talked about this. Mary Douglas,
Yeah, of
uh,
course. Yeah.
who lived into her 90s. Uh, I had the fortune of being in touch with her. Uh, and in her book, Thinking in Circles, she quotes me on concentric composition.
Yes, I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, in main text. Uh, Unfortunately, I knew her too close to her death because I couldn't couldn't present to her my further ideas on scrim and so forth. But she made a point of saying, and she stressed this to me personally, that ring composition is not about mnemonics. These people had all kinds of mnemonic abilities. They didn't need ring composition for that. It was about something else. And I think she believed there was an aesthetic dimension and other dimensions, but she was with you on this point that it's not about mnemonics. It may have begun, maybe, way back as a mnemonic device, but so yeah, I do think that that is part of it. How ring compositionally oriented was the audience? I don't know. Um, but
They don't have to
I
be.
think
In
it's
other words,
simple. I
there's
think
the
it's simple enough for them to hear the returns. I mean, if you consider Indian music, classical raga music, you know, the initiated, I mean, people who live in the world of raga, they know when a motif comes around again. They see the
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, one of the great public addresses of our time was Martin Luther King with I Have a Dream speech. And he repeats, I have a dream, blah, 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 blah. I have a dream. It's powerful. The people who study poetics and rhetoric uh, look at how he did that repetition. But for the average person on the street, it's the power of repetition that they perceive as a great speech or understand the point.
Okay.
That's the duality of the elite and the schmucks who are on the street who hear the message.
Louis, I'll have to cut this part off.
Why? Oh, cut off the word schmucks. You mean you'll edit it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'll tell you, these days, I mean, this is a
Okay,
whole aside, and you
I'll
can cut this
I'll
out, but
stop
I